Cool.
Oh,
What are you counting down from? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode number 4 of Magpie's Tales. Hopefully trying to entertain you and give you a little bit of connection with Dereham Town during what is a very strange and surreal period for us all as currently no football at Oldest Park. But we're edging closer to next season, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jay Eastoe-Smith. Jay, first and foremost, how are you doing? It's been a weird period, I think, for everyone. How are you finding it? I've seen you've been keeping up with Hux on some of his runs, so been keeping nice and fit.
Yeah, he's my mentor. I think he's my psychologist. He's my buddy. He shows me up 2 or 3 times a week. So yeah. But apart from that, yeah, pretty good. I think we all face the same problems, but I think trying to keep my mind fresh and keeping busy at work, which is obviously is a good thing for all of us.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but my hair's reached the stage now where it's just unmanageable. To be honest, this is about keeping it tame more than anything. Booked in for the 24th, so still got a little bit of time.
I'm saying I've chosen this lighting today because you can't see the greys so much. I'm going to look this way just so you can't see them as well.
Perfect. Yeah, mine's. I mean, you can see there my glasses are lost, so it's it's a bad stage. But anyway, enough about my hair. Just to quickly pick up on Hux very quickly. You obviously work with a lot of professional footballers. Just in terms of where he is physically, how does he rank to, let's say, a professional footballer now? Because I think everyone looks at his various stats that he posts on social media, and they're pretty impressive, aren't they, for someone who's retired?
Yeah, well, we joke about it all the time, but I genuinely think he'd still be an elite athlete. I don't know. I can't comment on footballing ability. I think the people that play at Cringleford Vets in his team would probably still say he's pretty good at that as well. But for his age and he's a joke really. To be, I think he's about 44 now. I think he'd win any physical test against most of our pros. I think he's bit of a freak of nature, but yeah, he's just. I think probably the thing with him is, and with a lot of elite athletes, is that the psychological side, he's just mentally so strong. When it gets tough, he keeps going and runs faster. Whereas when it gets tough, I want to slow down and stop. So he's very, very good.
Yeah, me too. Slowing down is definitely, I think, my instinct, which is probably why I'm not a professional footballer. But anyway, so that's it on me. First and foremost, you actually played for Dereham last night, didn't you? In a friendly fixture. How did you find that? Was what your first game in a while, presumably, given the lack of football and whatnot?
Yeah, I last played when Ollie and Gus took over. They contacted me when they first took over and said, would I come over and be part of the group, and through work commitments I sort of played 1 every 2 games, played 7 or 8 games in that first season that they took over and done. I thought I'd done okay, and then it's been just over 2 years now, and again they contacted me and said, would you fancy a game, would you fancy coming training? So unfortunately I missed training, but really enjoyed last night. It was good. We've got some really good players there. Again, the core group that I was playing with a couple of years ago still there. And then with Ollie and Gus, you've got 2 real good managers and people that have really installed quite a professional mentality into some of the young lads as well, which is good.
What's it like when you have a period that long out of the game and then you go straight back into playing? Is it quite a difficult adjustment to make?
I'm lucky enough to work in football, so I don't feel like I've had a break from football at all. Whether it's playing in staff games or occasionally playing it right back in a training session or filling in just to head a ball clear. I feel like I'm fully ingrained in it. I learn loads from the coaches, so probably my understanding of the game is greater now, and I wish I knew that when I played like full time. Well, I say full time, back when I was playing every week. I would have been a better footballer for it, I think. So yeah.
Is the mentality aspect, like you say there, is that the big thing that's improved around sort of being in and around obviously Norwich's academy, like you say, there's some excellent coaches, excellent young players, but is it that mentality? And you said there that Huck's had it as a professional athlete, numerous others have it. That tends to be the difference, doesn't it, between players that maybe go on and become great players and those that maybe fall away. Is always sort of pointed towards that mentality. Do you think that's kind of improved by being in and around that football culture every day?
Oh, massively. I think to be successful in that environment, whether you're a player, a coach, in my role, you have to be like relentlessly just striving to get better and better and better, because it doesn't wait for you. Like the young lads that I would say waste sessions would be the ones that probably don't make it in the end. And same for the pros. If they waste sessions or waste days, then they get left behind, or they'll finish mid-table. So as you can see at the club at the moment, the boys are absolutely flying in the first team. We're getting a few young players into the first team squad now, consistently over the last sort of 3 to 4 years, and that is probably, yeah, from top to bottom, this mentality of, right, we've got to keep going day on day. It's just like, yeah, relentless every single time.
Do you see a lot of similarities between perhaps the way that Norwich try and deal with young players and the way Dereham do as well? Obviously, they have Deso, which is a tremendously successful program. They've got numerous young players from the local area in the team, and it helps, I think, with that community feel of a football club, doesn't it? Do you see a lot of similarities between your work at Norwich and then what Gus and Ollie are trying to do at Dereham, albeit on sort of different levels and budgets and whatnot?
Yeah, definitely. With Ollie and Gus, obviously, if people aren't aware, that their background in having experience in the professional game is so valuable for Dereham Town and that education program. Then with the coaches and staff that lead the education program, you've got some great people there. I'm very biased. I grew up in Dereham, and I just think the club's always been run very, very well. I think now with the infrastructure you've got at the top of the club, I think, yeah, it's a successful. It's a bit of a winning formula, really. But yeah, I think Dereham will always try to do it the right way. It's at senior level, when we're never going to pay the most money for players locally. We're never going to splash all the cash, but what we'll do, people want to come and play for Dereham Town because it's a well-run club. Got some great supporters, some excellent people behind the scenes that do so much work that people don't see, and have done it consistently year on year on year, and kept the club afloat and at the level they're playing at now.
Is that the reason, do you think, that players like yourself, others, and I'd even throw Gus and Ollie into this, so we've had them on in our last couple of episodes and they've spoken about sort of their connection with Dereham and how strong it is? Is it those reasons that you've just stated there, you think, that maybe connects people with the club so easily? Because it seems that there's a lot of people that feel very warmly about Dereham, the team, but equally the football club and what's trying to be created there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Gus and Ollie, when I was younger, I'd obviously played under 18s football, came into the first team squad, and them two they're the focal point in the dressing room back then, and they still are, but in a different position now. But I'm sure Ollie and Gus, they were too good for the level that we played at, really. And I'm sure they would have had offers to go elsewhere for more money, whether it be a Lowestoft or Sudbury's or whoever it might be. I can only guess. But probably the things that would keep them there is it's a well-run club. Obviously, the sad news about Ray Bales that came out not so long ago, the reason that hit local football and probably Dereham people so much is because he was one of many that ran the club, and they were people that you wanted to spend time with. You came off the pitch when you arrived on a match day. Whether we've been through different periods. We used to turn up for a pre-game meal almost before, when we won the league previously and went up into the Isthmian League. It was all them people that had set all that stuff up to try and make it as elite as we could possibly be. And when you spoke about a budget before, and probably a bit of a shoestring budget, but Dereham have always maximised the resources that they've had. And there's people that have gone above and beyond, Ray being one, for years and years and years, that have got the club in the position they are now. And that's why people want to go back all the time. That's why consistently we'll get 200 fans at a game. It's a really well-run club, and yeah, it has been for the last probably 15 years that I can comment on anyway.
And it's important, isn't it, particularly in non-league, and I guess particularly in the time that we're in. And in professional football, and we've seen with perhaps some of Daniel Barden, I'm thinking, for example, who had a loan to non-league. That is a very important route, not just for the non-league system, but equally for the professional game as well, because it helps with budding in those youngsters, and I guess picking some of them up perhaps after getting released, etc. It's a very important part of our game, and maybe more clubs, I think, should look to model themselves on Dereham. I think in the episodes we've done, there's kind of been a key theme, and you've kind of touched upon it there, which is sustainability, which maybe isn't necessarily the most popular word in football more widely, but it's very important, particularly at non-league level, and particularly when you don't have, I guess, like Dereham don't, someone who can just kind of throw money at it or wave a check away. It's important to represent your community, but also be sustainable, isn't it? It's that careful balance.
Yeah, I remember every single senior year, every single season I played for Dereham, over like an 11-year period, we would always joke about in the dressing room. There'd be teams in the league that would fly high to start with. I don't want to say names necessarily because it's quite disrespectful, but they would start the season, they'd fly, and we'd go, oh my God, they've got a striker from Sudbury and they're paying him £200 a week or £200 a game. You're like, oh my God, how are we going to compete with that? But then we always knew that after Christmas, they'd just drop away, because if they weren't going to get promoted, or they weren't willing to invest in the facilities to get them to the next level, it was like, okay, they're going to drop away anyway. And we were always a team that would just hold on, we'll keep going, and we'll keep going, and we'll keep going. We probably, throughout a 6-7 year period, would finish second, third, fourth, then we got promoted. And then again, when you go to the next level, it's like it's just working to get and be consistent at the next level and survive, and then prosper, and then be contenders for and where they're at the moment is trying to contend to get to the next level. So, and that all just comes off consistency. I think consistent approach of not going above your means, because if not, Dereham Town probably wouldn't be here. You wouldn't have Alders Park facilities they got there, which are great. People always say it's the best in the county. Yeah, and I think that's why we're the third best team in Norfolk.
Absolutely. And you mentioned there 11 years at Dereham Town for yourself. How do you kind of reflect on that now? Is it a period of your life that you reflect on with real fondness? You speak about the club in such glowing terms. How do you kind of reflect on that 11 years? Positive, I presume.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. I think because it's not professional football, but you make some unbelievable friends. There is change in like the dressing room, but we had a real core group. And like I said, Ollie and Gus were a massive part of that for a long, long period. Managers changed, but not frequently. So we had Matty Hemmond for years and years and years. Then Neil Simmons, who was obviously his assistant previously, and then Ollie and Gus coming in took over. And again, like when I said about a consistent approach, I think we pretty much ran the dressing room ourselves, and the managers always wanted this togetherness where we had some clowns in the dressing room, don't get me wrong, but they were brilliant and they kept people going. And if you probably spoke to people like Luke Hannon, Fraser Blake Tracy, the guys that have gone on to the next level, it was because where you talk about Dan Barden as well, they had the experience of coming into a dressing room of people that had experience at a top level. So we had Ollie and Gus and Nicky and people like that, and gained such valuable experience, whether it's in life or as a person. You just grew I grew as a person. And when I stepped into my role at Norwich, is that transition into professional sports so easy, because you've been around like a football environment for years and years and years. So it's no different there. It's just they get paid a lot of money and the stakes are just full time for those guys. But yeah, to answer your question, really is I cannot have a bad word to say about Dereham Town. All my experiences have been personally have been really positive, and anyone I still talk about Dereham Town probably daily at work, and they probably get bored of it. But no, it's a great football club.
Absolutely. I know you said obviously about playing last night. Is there a temptation, a kind of willingness on your part to get back involved with it? I guess that's probably the question people watching will want me to ask you.
I said to Gus last night, let's see how it goes. I don't want to answer him. And I think about it all the time, but I think everyone that knows me respected my decision years ago to fully commit to my career, and I've never ever looked back. Um, yeah, I'd love to play week in, week out, but unfortunately, we know that my career is what is going to pay for my house, and hopefully when I have children and stuff like that, then yeah, that sort of I can build my life around that. But maybe, let's see. I've just turned 30, so I'm getting old now. Like I said at the start, I've got loads of grey hairs and probably not as athletic as I used to be. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
That's your prime, isn't it? I mean, you can probably tell me someone who works in performance and sort of physicality. 30, probably the upper end of your prime, surely.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think so. Probably more psychologically now. Again, if you spoke to Ollie and Gus, they'd say I was an angry young man when I was younger. Now I'm a little bit more placid, and when I play, I'm just happy to play. You probably know more about the game, so decisions you make when you're on the pitch are better. So you're probably getting better positions and organise people around you easier. So probably more successful when I play now because of just experience, rather than having to rely on physicality and the odd big tackle every so often. So yeah.
Do you miss it, or does the fact that you work in football in a professional environment, does that kind of help, I suppose, the lack of football? Because I can imagine, even though perhaps you're not playing it, it's still, well, it's your work, isn't it? So it's probably on your mind pretty for large portions of the day, I would presume. So that maybe has eased not playing a little bit.
Yeah, it feels a bit of a hole, but there's the bit it doesn't feel is the competitive side of me. So probably why I do the running at the moment is because it's another challenge, and you're always seeking challenges. But yeah, I do miss it. And probably the reason I've stayed away from Alders Park as much over the last couple of years, obviously COVID dependent at the moment, but it's because every time I went back, I wanted to come back and play. So I follow everything on Twitter. I follow all the results. I like to keep in contact with people like Dave Hinton, who's a good friend, and always seeing how the club's progressing. But yeah, every time I go there, that's when the temptation gets bigger. So I sort of have to go dip in and dip out every so often. But yeah, I'd love to play, but just have to prioritise stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned they're playing with Gus and Ollie. Are you surprised, given how they were in the dressing room? You can perhaps offer a little bit more insight than most. Perhaps, are you surprised that they wandered into coaching, into management? Is that something that particularly surprises you? I know Gus obviously had a brief spell, didn't he, as a very young player, sort of in temporary charge, which we spoke to him about a couple of whenever we last did this, and quite extraordinary, really, for someone to become a caretaker at 20 years old, essentially. Are you surprised that they've ended up perhaps where they are and back at Dereham? Because I think they've both spoken pretty openly about that being probably the only club they'd have left Harleston for.
Not surprised at all. When you play with them, yes, like I said, Ollie was a bit of a joker in the dressing room. Mainly the jokes were aimed at Gus or Nicky Howe. So yeah, they were both lively. But if you look at their sort of key things that are probably making him successful is I always thought Gus as a footballer probably wasn't the most athletic, but tactically he understood the game probably better than anyone I've ever played with. He's a real, like, I don't know, he loves the game, loves his coaching, so that he's got that part absolutely nailed down. And then Ollie's a great people's person as well. Gus is as well, but Ollie is he's great for the lads. Probably brilliant support for Gus as well. They understand the level. They understand geographically, probably the challenges of recruiting players and stuff, and they've got a really good reputation locally that probably helps with that. Yeah, so I don't think you have two better people leading the football club at the minute.
Have they always had? I'm trying to word this carefully. Have they always had a strained relationship with officials? I think that maybe the diplomatic way to put it. Have they always been pretty vocal towards the man with the whistle?
Gus definitely. Yeah, Gussie was always he was the most calm person, But yeah, he was almost passive aggressive. Does that make sense?
Of course, yeah.
He was someone that when he went, he went. Ollie was probably a little bit more constant, but little bits and pieces. So he was always in a referee or linesman's ear. But then he played on the right side, so there's a linesman beside him all the time. So playing at right back, well, when he stood at right back, most of the time he was like top end of the pitch and didn't really defend. But yeah, between them, yeah, they're both had the fair share of run-ins with officials, I think. Ollie's was more because he used to dive in the box, and there's a left winger called Andy Key that used to play for Norwich United that probably particularly didn't like Ollie, and every time Ollie got in their box would fall over. So yeah, there's lots of run-ins with officials around that type of stuff as well.
Yeah. Do you feel that I guess the direction that they're taking the club in, is it similar to where you played, I guess, based on togetherness and young players, as we've spoken about, that sort of direction? Is that kind of how you expected them to take it when they were first appointed? Obviously you were a player when they first arrived. Was that kind of how they, I guess, laid out their vision, their view? Obviously it was fairly short term because the aim initially was to keep the club in the league, right? But in terms of long term, is that kind of how you saw it sort of progressing under those two?
Yeah, and I think it's always been the model. If you actually look back over the last, like, I can probably talk to when I probably 12 seasons, 13 seasons. It's always been, we've always had fresh young faces around it, where you've got whether it's a Dan Beaumont when he first come through, or people like a Luke Hannon, Fraser Blake Tracy that have come in, myself. We've always had the young ones coming in, but always supported by senior lads. So if you look at your core group that you've got there now, people like Matt Castellan's not very old. Dion Ferry aren't that old, but they've played a lot of games at that level now. They know the way that Dereham want to play. Dave Hinton in the centre of the field. We've got Toby, obviously, that's played loads of games at that level or above. You've got a key group of players there that can really help the younger ones and the less experienced ones thrive at that level. And that's always been Dereham's model, I think. It's never been like a spoken, that's what we're going to do. But I think it's always been the model. And that's probably quite sustainable, because the young ones hopefully grow into your team. The older ones naturally drop out or go elsewhere or stay on as part of the club. And you're always getting a fresh turnover, but keeping your key group. So yeah, I think they've continued on that work, and obviously they're probably even better placed than previous managers because they've had the experience of working with under 18s at Norfolk. I think that's a really, really good starting point for them. They understand the challenges they've got. Yeah, and they've been young pros as well, so they're really good at dealing with young people. They've got a clear, a clear playing philosophy, which would fit in the modern game. And when the game develops at that level further, I'm sure Dereham will be at the forefront at that level. So,
you obviously work with young players. Once a young player yourself, so you can probably answer this based on experience as well. But how important is it when a young player does come in that they've got players that are supportive? I think we talk about managers entrusting youth, but it's important that you've got a player alongside you maybe that can talk you through and offer little snippets of advice just to get you through games and give you enough information, I suppose, maybe positionally and tactically at times to help you improve, I suppose, on the pitch. How important is it that you have those pros willing to help out those sort of fresh faces?
Yeah, I think I've always said experience is invaluable, and experience doesn't have to be for the young person to have played 100 games, but if you've got experience beside them that can help them, I think you see faster improvements in performance. Yeah, I think, like I said, the model that Dereham have at the moment is perfect, because you've got loads of people. I can talk about Dave Hinton. We played last night, second half, young centre midfielder, and you've got Dave Hinton beside him, and he's talking through the game. And for that young player, you've got protection, and you're able to thrive a little bit more with that protection, and it gives you confidence to try stuff. You're going to get stuff wrong. Every young person gets things wrong. All old people get things wrong, but it's yeah, just knowing that you've got people around you that are there to protect you and help you when things go wrong is quite valuable, I think.
Right, on to you then. I've got a
Yeah.
few numbers written down about your time at Dereham. I think they were slightly off with Gus, so you have to take issue with Ben Williamson, who's forwarded them on. So I'll read them to you. He's got written down 233 appearances and 14 goals, which is a fairly decent return. You can maybe tell me if that's right or not. I can see you adding up in your head.
I'm surprised I played that many games because all the guys that played with me would say, "Oh, Jay's gone missing for 6 weeks. Where's Jay been?" So
Well, I've got a split for you. So 206 of those are in the league, 129 in the Eastern Counties, and 77 in the Isthmian, and then 12 goals with 6 in each league. So 6 goals and 77 appearances. That's a pretty decent return, isn't it, for a defender?
Yeah, I should have scored. I should have scored 2 last night, but Blaze went over the bar with my left foot, left shin, and then headed one wide. So yeah, yeah, I should have played more games really, but like I said, work commitments probably didn't allow. But yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it's a decent return, isn't it, for that level of football? I think when and you're probably a good example of maybe the sort of issue. Well, no, it's not an issue, but it's kind of maybe the pitfalls of it compared to the professional games. You get players that obviously have other commitments, and talent isn't always kind of enough, is it, at semi-pro level? You also have to have a good kind of calendar, I suppose, to play that amount of games. But 206 league appearances in 11 years, it's not bad going. I'm not very good at maths, but I'm sure someone will tell us how many games that is per season. You've got to be pretty chuffed with that.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think the people that have been around Dereham Town for a while, when you get people like Luke Tuttle, so Luke Tuttle was an absolute gem that we signed, came from Anglian combination football, and they're the people that have been really successful, where they noticed that Luke would be able to do the Saturday, Tuesday, whether it's away games, home games, around work commitments. Aaron Kay, we call Bullet, but yeah, Aaron Kay. Those guys were absolutely brilliant for the club because they were consistently there, and you need that group again. So it's where I talk about the key group. The key group is not just experienced players, but it's players that can be there every game, because you're naturally going to be in non-league football. You're naturally going to miss 2 or 3 every so often, especially midweek games at that level. At the moment, where you're playing away in London and stuff like that, it's a hard place to be. Sometimes you're getting back at 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're back at work at 6, 7. So it's a huge commitment, and that's where Ollie and Gus have done brilliantly to get as many players to make that commitment as they have. So yeah, very good.
So 233 appearances. Are there any games in particular that stand out in your mind as being particularly good? And feel free to list as many or as few as you like, maybe for good and bad reasons.
I hoped you were going to ask this. I've got one that really.
I can see the pen in hand.
Yeah, I have. I made notes. We signed a guy, or 2 guys from Wisbech, proper characters. Chris Horton was a goalkeeper, who originally was second choice to, I think it was Sean Marshall, but then Sean Marshall retired, stopped, who ex-professional, excellent guy. And then Chris came in, and we had Billy, can't remember, Billy Smith, and Billy was a proper character as well. So we were supposed to play away at Hadley. And this is one thing where I think I was valuable, because I could play every position. So we turned up at Hadley doing the warm-up, and we were thinking, where are these 2? No sub-goalkeeper. Rainy day, winds blowing absolute gale. We're a little bit short on players for the day because of work commitments. And Hadley are doing really well in the league. So we turn up there, and Simo comes up to me and says, we're going up and down the lines doing our stretching. He goes, can you go just do a little warm-up as goalkeeper? So I was like, yeah, yeah, no problem. I was a tall lad, and I could smash it miles. So I started the game in goal. 30 minutes in, they're running down the side of the pitch with the bags. So Simo's like, right, Jay, 5 minutes. Okay, cool. So 0-0, caught a couple of crosses, couple of good kicks, nearly set up a goal. 0-0, 30 minutes in. Make a sub, so Chris comes on, and we take off a centre midfielder, I think, and then I go into centre back. Lost the game 4-0. So it's like, maybe I should have stayed in goal, or maybe it was me as a centre back conceding them goals. I had a bit of a stinker actually for that game. So that was a memorable one. We had Lark Hall Athletic. So we played in last 32, I think, or last 16. I think it's the club's furthest we ever got in the FA Vars. We travelled there overnight when Simon Barnes was chairman. We managed to get some funding to stay in a hotel because it was over in Bath. Rained all night, so we wake up the next morning, it's like our game's off. So we travel back, have a few stops, stop off in Newmarket for a few alcoholic beverages, and then do it again the week after. Get off the bus, and about, I reckon, 50% of the squad, I was an unused sub, so I travelled all that way for an unused sub. But we won, so I was happy. About 50% of the group, when we tried to get off the minibus or the bus at the end, could hardly walk off the bus. So that was a memorable one. And then we probably had a moment which is probably a notorious story. People still talk about it and ask me to tell people. So I think it's probably the time to say. Matt Hinman was manager. I was about 18 or 19. My best friends at the time, Jason Hunt, and me and Dan Beaumont, we were all real close friends playing in the first team. I've been playing most weeks, done all right. Played Swaffham in a home game. I got in a bit of trouble because Gary Setchell was playing up front, who ex-Kings Lynn manager, a bit aggressive. And there's something that kicked off on the sidelines between my dad and his dad, believe it or not. And then after that game, we then play Ely City. And I'm thinking, right, I'm definitely going to play here. So everyone's sitting in the dressing room. Matty Henman reads out the squad. I think, well, I'm not in the starting 11, so I'm fuming. What's going on here? Like, I thought I'd done all right. Reads out the subs. He gets number 14, number 15. Still not read my name out. I'm thinking, he must have forgot me here. Like, I'm sat in the dressing room, and then still doesn't say my name. So I've been dropped from the squad. I also had a new phone at the time. So lads go out to warm up. So I'm sulking a little bit, not even getting dressed. So I text my mum to say, oh, I'm not in the squad. Don't bother coming to watch, because parents always came to watch. I've been dropped from the squad, don't know why. And then the manager is with an expletive at the end. So I was like, best mate runs straight back in. Jay, you know, you just sent that message. I was like, yeah. How does he know I've messaged my mum? You didn't message your mum. You messaged Matty Henman. I was like, oh God. I wanted to like melt. What's going on here? So I remember Ely City game at home for that reason more than anything. And Matty came back in and with like faith, and Matty was pretty fiery at times. Me and him had some run-ins over the years, but to be fair to him, I played most of my games under him. So yeah, he sort of turned a bit of a blind eye to it, and I played the next game. But yeah, they're games that I really remember. And obviously, Senior Cup win when we beat Kings Lynn 4-1. Dan Beaumont, I think he scored a hat trick, and we absolutely thumped them, which was nice. St Neots FA Cup at home. I hadn't played many games that season because of work. Had a big game. It was a replay. They'd drawn 2-2 on Saturday, and then I came into the starting 11 for the midweek game, and we won on penalties to get us to go and play at Boston away, which was in front of about a couple of thousand people at Boston. I think everyone that played in that game knows we should have won the game. Toby Hilliard missed 3 sitters, so I like Toby a lot, but I got onto him even this week and said that he still ruined my footballing career because could have been in the first round proper. But yeah, that was good. I think that's probably they're the most memorable ones. With loads of them, every game is good. We smashed Lowestoft 5-1 the day that they'd won the league, or they'd won the league. We gave them a guard of honour at home, and then we beat them 5-1. So that was quite nice. But yeah, I think, to be fair, I've got a bit of a freakish memory. I think I remember most games that I played in. I remember score lines. I remember opposition. Yeah, I liked all the hardest games, whereas like the Wroxham Dereham games were always good, or Dereham Wroxham games, because they were proper rivalries back then. There were lots of senior lads. some really Wroxham were like aggressive. They're a proper men's football team, old school men's football team. Not relative, they weren't great footballers, but they're just work so hard. They were relentless. They're nasty, and we won a few, our fair few games against them, and they're always satisfying. Same with like Fakenham games. Back when Fakenham were pretty good, and Swaffham when they were competitive as well. Every time we beat them, that was good because it was a local derby and it meant a lot to the people of the football club. So yeah, I hope that's a bit of an insight.
Yeah, definitely. Just back to that text story. How did you repair that situation? Because that seems for a lot of players, I can imagine sending their manager a text like that would have been them gone. They wouldn't have been seen again. So you obviously did something right if you started the following week.
Yeah, I don't know really. I just showed. I always had a bit of a hard man exterior, but then melted when I was in situations like that. So probably you could see what a big mistake it was. And it did say mum at the start of the text. So that probably saved me a little bit. So we know it wasn't supposed to be for him. Andy knew that I probably would have said it to him as well if I had the opportunity. But no, Matt was a good guy. He'd obviously been at Dereham for years and years and years. He'd been a great servant to the club as a player and manager. And I'm sure he had experience worse than that. So I think he had a bit more of a soft spot for me because I was a Dereham boy as well.
And I suppose maybe as a manager, that's maybe kind of the reaction you'd want from a player, wouldn't it? To feel hurt about being dropped out of a team. I guess the worst sort of response is kind of a shrug of the shoulders, and maybe that's it. So maybe that emotion maybe saved you. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm sure Matt will. I'm sure this will be put on social media somewhere, and Matt will be able to offer his version of events. But all went well in the end. What was it like to play under him as a manager? You said there you were pretty young when sort of he was in charge. You played the bulk of your games under him. How do you kind of reflect on playing under him as a manager? What was that experience like?
I found it difficult to start with because we had Rob Taylor previously. So I'd gone from playing under 18s football, dripping in and out to first team football with Rob Taylor. Rob Taylor left. And then to be fair, May was the first one to like really say, right, you're going to come and play now. But at the time we had, like I said, we had a really senior group. Even with people like Ollie and Gus, they were young at the time, but they were never going to lose their place in the team because they were so experienced and like top performers. So I found it really difficult because you don't know if you're good enough to play in his team, so you're almost like second guessing him. But what he was always really good at with me was like being open and honest with me. Always would, if I weren't playing, tell me why I weren't playing. Probably not on that occasion, but after that, definitely. And I think it was easy for me because he knew how much I wanted to play for Dereham Town. The only time I didn't play for Dereham Town was I had a real serious injury and I missed 11 months and went and played a few months at the end of the season for Norwich United. And even then, I was coming back and playing for Dereham because Matt wanted me to be a part of it. I think he liked me being part of the group. I think Ollie and Gus liked me being a part of the group when I came back a couple of years ago, just because the passion. I think it sounds silly because it's a non-league football team, but I always wanted to play for Dereham. It meant a lot to go and play for Dereham and represent Dereham. Things that I didn't like were people that didn't try, and I'd always demand the same levels of effort and I guess application from all my teammates. Probably a little bit too vocally sometimes, which might be a little bit overwhelming, but I guess make no apologies for that because I'm a winner and I wanted us to be as successful as we could be.
I was going to ask you about that injury, but seeing as you've brought it up, seems a nice time to talk about it. 11 months out is, it's a tremendous period of time, even for a sort of semi-pro, amateur, whatever you want to call yourself, football. It's a long period of time without playing football. How difficult was that kind of period for you, where you're not playing through no fault of your own? It's quite a difficult sort of situation. Many people find it pretty tough mentally, don't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, I work day in, day out with players that are going through that now, and it's helped me in my career because you've got the sympathy for that. You're sympathetic, but you also understand the need to go and work hard and do all your rehabilitation properly. But yeah, that was tough. But that's another thing. I had lots of injuries when playing for Dereham, not like long term stuff, but that injury I'm talking about there, Craig Bussins also broke his leg at Wroxham at a similar sort of time, and the type of club that Dereham are, Simon Barnes done a big fundraiser thing for us both. So we were obviously, I was not on a contract at Dereham. I was just pay as you play. Being a local lad, I never played for money necessarily. It wasn't the need for it, but you do become reliant on that wage to a certain extent. It's like whether it's your beer money. Some people use it as a beer money. Some people pay off the mortgage with it. So yeah, to miss football was really difficult. But then I was also full time at Norwich City, so it affected my work. I was wanting to be successful there. I wanted to get promoted in my role there. It just affects everything because you get injured on it. My biggest fear playing last night was some idiot going and kicking me, and then I can't go to work the next day, or I have to go and explain to my boss why I can't do my day-to-day duties at work. And if I'm completely honest, that's probably the main reason I don't play now, because I've had it a couple of times where I've had like a head injury, and you come into work and you've got like a big, I split my eye open. Our keeper once, I went to head the ball from a corner and he's punched me in the mouth and my tooth went through my lip. So you go to work and you look an absolute mess, and people think, oh, has he been fighting? Or no, it's like it's that sort of stuff, and you can't then do your day-to-day stuff. And I think that's the sacrifice that every person that plays non-league football makes. And that's tough to go and tell an employer that. So I think probably that one injury really made me rethink what I was doing, and that was probably the point where I started to play less frequently. And yeah, but again, like I can't speak highly enough about the way the football club sort of helped me out through that process. And same for Craig Bussins, I'm sure he'd say exactly the same thing. And I'm sure they'd do it for any player. So.
Absolutely, yeah. It's yeah. I guess that's the main thing as a player, isn't it? Because I think if you're out for a prolonged period of time, it's probably quite easy to be forgotten, especially if maybe results are either going very well or very poorly. It's maybe you kind of get sort of trapped in the shadows a little bit. I asked Gus and Ollie this question, so I'll ask you it as well. You kind of referenced non-leagues are very it's a very sort of shallow circle, so to speak. Players move pretty freely. You've spoken about your love for Dereham Town. Was there ever an opportunity maybe that people wouldn't be aware of, where you had a chance to maybe go and play higher, or an opportunity to go and play elsewhere?
More so when I was almost stopping playing, because when I was younger, when I look back now, I think not that I was rubbish, but I had some good traits. I was athletic. I was pretty aggressive. I thought I was a fairly decent defender, but probably where I let myself down was that when I got a bit emotional in the game, that I'd either boil over or I didn't have enough control of it. The older I got, the more experience I got. Read the game, but probably a few years ago would be the only a couple of times really. I always got spoken to by local teams, but they were all similar level at the time, because we had your lower staffs. Lower staffed. The best teams around here, Norwich United, Wroxham's, were all, when it was the Regions League, we were all the top teams in that league. So my mindset was always, I wouldn't want to go and play for them, because I want to go and play football and be competitive and have the motivation to do well for Dereham, because it's my hometown. I see the people. I used to work in Dereham in a sports shop, and there's people would come and see me on a Saturday morning before the game. I'd be working at the sports shop, finish my shift to go straight to the game, and I'll have people come and speak to me for an hour in the shop in the morning to see how I'm feeling. Are we going to win today, and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, I don't think I ever would have wanted to play for anyone else locally, because I don't think it would have fulfilled my needs psychologically, and in terms of enjoyment. I never ever wanted to travel to a game. I wanted a home game to be a home game where I could be at the ground in 5 minutes and be home. I wanted to know people that were watching the game. Sounds really silly, but my biggest thing is, I know I'm a sports scientist, so I shouldn't really talk about it, but even the last couple of years when I went and played a few games, is we finished the game and I'd always probably be the last one in the bar at the end, not necessarily drinking all the time, but I loved all the social bit of sitting with the lads after the game, sitting with the local people. So it's like my friends' dads and whatever are part of the committee still. And they're the people I grew up with at the football club as being a young player at, I don't know, 11 years old, and then all the way up until a 28-year-old. So, yeah, I think they're the bits where I never ever would have wanted to have left anyway. And I probably didn't get the opportunity to. But, yeah, I don't know. I never really committed at the key ages. So from the key age of, like, I guess 25, 24, 25, that's where work took over. So I don't really know what level I could have played at. Dereham, at the level they're at now, is probably, I think, yeah, if I'm realistic, I could have been successful at that level consistently, but I don't know if I could have played any higher.
Do you have, we've spoken obviously about the good times, the togetherness, your 200 plus games. Do you have any regrets from your time at Dereham, from your time at playing local football? Is there anything you think, I wish I'd have done that, or I wish I'd have pushed on, or whatever? Do you have any of those thoughts?
I wouldn't call them regrets. I'd say I wish I knew more earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That in a way that I thought, like, the being the aggressive one on the pitch was going to help me. Now I look back, it hindered me, definitely, as a footballer. And probably, yeah, if I wish I knew, I wish I knew that earlier, because I think I could have been more successful. I'm really proud that I always stayed with the same football club from when I played. I've always made it really, really clear that I'd never want to go and play anywhere else. I wouldn't want to go and play at a lower level. I wouldn't want to go and play for a different team at this level, because I've got no interest. It doesn't bother me at all. Yeah, Dereham Town's a great football club at this level. I hope the guys at the top at the minute are going to keep moving it forwards. People that have backed it, whether it's a Tony Barker or, like I said, people like Ray Bales. We had Mike Baldry back in the day, who done, hours and hours and hours of hard work to make it the club that it was. Simon Barnes back in the day as well when I played. Nick Starling. There's so many, like, unsung heroes that people don't even know about. I think you've got Dale there still at the moment. And even when you look back at people like Brian Garner, they've been there for years and years and years. Like, when I was a kid, they've never ever turned their back on the club. The club never turned their back on them, and that's why, because I knew the commitment that everyone else made around the football club. I thought, yeah, it's a pretty special place. So, yeah, I never wanted to go elsewhere.
Just finally, then, before we get into some questions that people have sent in for you, Jay, speak about your job at the minute in terms of sports science. Where did that kind of interest first spark up for you? Was it inspired by playing local football? Was it coincidence? Did it help you when you were a local player, having that knowledge on how to sort of maintain physical fitness to extract the best of what you needed to do for performance, etc.?
Yeah, I guess probably. I don't really know the answer. I've thought about this before. A bit of everything, really. Yeah, I wanted to be part of elite sport. I didn't make it as a footballer. I wanted to be part of elite sport. I didn't know what I wanted to do, though. I also thought about going into things like physiotherapy, or do I go and join the army as a PT or something like that, or do I want to coach football? So I got into coaching at 16 years old, so I've done lots of coaching, worked in retail, so I've got good at communicating with people, whether it's old ladies or young people. So, like, a tough situation. So I quite enjoyed the competitive side of the sport and then dealing with people. So I thought, well, I think I've got the basics there. And then I actually failed at A levels, really. I hated A levels. I tried that for the first year and it was too much like school. So I went to Easton at Easton College. Had a lady that saw that I was an angry young man, but took me under her wing a little bit. A lady called Jane Freeman sort of and guided me towards this. Really, I was fortunate enough to get offered an unpaid internship through my third year of my degree from a guy called Chris Lorkin, who's now Northamptonshire cricket, was at Aston Villa with Paul Lambert. Offered me to come in 1 day a week, then it got to 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. At the end of the season, I then got offered a full-time internship. And from there, it's just been, I've been sort of promoted every couple of years, really, since I've been there. So I've never sort of not got bored. It doesn't, that would be awful. But the job's always been fresh. Norwich City is my new Dereham Town. So I've always followed Norwich City and grown up in the area. And yeah, I've got a huge passion about elite performance now. I think I have a really good understanding of what it takes for a young player to break into our first team now. Obviously, they can't all make it, but we've definitely put processes in place to hopefully make that more successful and make that more frequent now. Yeah, so that's sort of the journey to it. And now my job's a little bit more overseeing lots of small departments and dealing with a lot more people, bigger decisions, which is quite daunting at times, but so beneficial and so worthwhile. And yeah, I feel a huge part of the football club and absolutely love every day that I go in.
Good, absolutely. I was going to ask you because you're the official title head of Academy Athletic Performance. I was going to ask you to kind of sum up, maybe for people who aren't aware, maybe necessarily of what you do day to day. How would you best sort of describe your sort of day to day role and the work that you do with sort of the young players at Norwich City?
So my main role really is I'm a bit of a glorified fitness coach. So for the 23s players at the moment, under 23s players, my main role, that's my main team that I work with on a day-to-day basis, but I also work across the whole academy all the way down to under 9s. So my responsibilities are programming in the gym, leading gym sessions. It would be all pre-training. So we have what we'd call a pre-activation session, warm-up, some conditioning. So when we're trying to develop speed, agility, strength, power, whatever it is. I also work extremely closely with the coaches. So I'm the link between the science and the coaching. I work really closely with the head of football development. And then my biggest scope is around, I oversee the sports science and department and the medical department. So all the physios fall under my remit. Nutrition, yeah, and that then chefs, kitchen porters, we have all sorts. Yeah, so it's quite a broad area, but it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's everything that is to do with physical performance falls under my sort of scope. And yeah, and I work quite closely with the head of performance in the first team, Christoph Magala, a German guy who came in a few years ago with Daniel Farker, and he's great as well. He's been an excellent mentor for me. He's taught me loads about different ways of working. So that's been a really beneficial thing to have as well.
What I suppose is the aim is the aim to take that step up to first team level. Is that something you'd like to do in the future? Have you not really thought that far ahead? I can imagine with your role, it's probably difficult to think.
Yeah, no, you think about it every day. It's the whole thing. You want to be an astronaut as a kid. The sky's the limit, really, I guess, because the same as being a footballer. You want to go and work for England. I'd love to have a go at the senior England job, being a fitness coach. But yeah, it's stepping stones. I'd love to have a go at first team football. I've had a little go through the 2018-19 season when we got promoted. So I've done about 8 months sort of supporting the first team because a member of staff had left, and sort of I filled that gap alongside my academy duties and absolutely loved it. But then I've also got a massive passion of youth development because I think that's a really specialist area, and I think I do really well in that area at the moment. It's probably my strongest point But yeah, I'd love to have a go at leading the first team. I think it'd be really cool. Long term, I'd like to be almost integrated as part of a coaching team as well. So I could, almost a first team coach, but head of performance. I think that's my main aim. That's not yet, but yeah, when I'm fully qualified as a hopefully a pro licensed coach in the future, then yeah, I think that's my key aim really.
Final question for me before I throw it over to our viewers who've asked you a few. Are there any skills that you've taken from playing for Dereham that you use in your role day to day now, and maybe more in terms of like you mentioned professionalism early on, that sort of thing? I'm thinking in terms of your current role, is there anything that you've maybe taken from your 11 years or so at Dereham?
Yeah, the sorts of experiences that I spoke about, is the biggest joke that we've spoke about in here, but the Matty Henry situation, the really tough situations where you get yourself in, or that you see the boys that are that they get themselves in tough situations. I think I'm really good at dealing with them and helping people get through them because you've experienced it in your life already. I think I'm good at putting myself in other people's shoes. I think I understand the pressures that they go through as young people. I know I'm now, like I said, I'm 30 now, but it wasn't that long ago that I was their age. So, yeah, I see myself as more of like I don't know, a mentor to guide them a little bit more. I've got the how I play. I sort of coach as well, and when I work with the lads, I'm pretty straight to the point and demand high standards from the players every day. But then I think I get a lot of respect back because of that. Yeah, I think probably the way I played football. I guess I sort of carry into my day-to-day working life as well. So really demanding on others, demanding on myself of high standards, and I think that's a recipe for success. Whatever you do, whether you're working in elite sport or whatever your career is.
Excellent stuff. Right, a few questions for you here. The first one from Gary Starling says, "Good evening, Jay. How are the legs after last night, first and foremost?"
Yeah. So yeah, I was best man at Gary's wedding, so I'm really happy he's asked that he's actually asked that question because it could have been a lot worse. But yeah, they're fine. Thank you, Gary. And thanks for the question. But yeah, he's also on a 1,000 miles running target for this year or something like that. So
incredible.
Gary's getting himself fit. He's the next one to come back, I think, to play for Dereham because he's got a wonderful left foot.
Interesting stuff. Let's see what else we've got. Alfred Barnhart has said, "Question for Jay." This is quite a good one. "We remember your very short career modelling clothing for Gerald's. Which current Magpies player do you think could have a modelling career?"
Actually, Alfred, can I just say that is one of the proudest moments of my life.
Well, talk to me a little bit about that then. Being a model for Gerald's, how does that come about?
Well, as you mentioned it, yeah, let's talk about it. Gerald decided to run a campaign. Well, not run a campaign, but sorry, Lucy, my partner's just brought this down. If anyone wants to see it, this is
sensational.
So she's listening from upstairs, so she thought bring that down. So yeah, that's they redone their menswear section and they wanted to do a new campaign to sell it and whatever, and they decided that for a picture that was in the paper of me playing football, that was I was going to be their local footballer as part of that. So there's a local cricketer, and I think it's we've got a local rugby player, an American footballer, a footballer, and a tennis player. So I was the football option. So I got.
So are we saying that they picked you out from the paper because of how you look, basically?
Yeah, to be fair, look, the picture in the paper actually looked like it'd been airbrushed, so I looked better than what I actually did. So I think they're disappointed when I actually turned up on the day, but it's one of the things. So I got to model a bit of Tommy Hilfiger. It's nice.
How did you find that experience? It's a bit different from playing football every week.
Yeah, awkward. Yeah, horrible.
So go on then, just to answer the second part of that question, which current Magpies player do you think could have a modelling career?
Does it have to be a player or Ollie Willis still? It's got to be.
I'll let you have Ollie. I'll let you have
Yeah.
Ollie.
I don't know. I don't know who else. Actually, Elliot. How Elliot? Yeah, Elliot's. Yeah, he's the man, isn't he?
Excellent. We'll go with Elliot then. This is an interesting one from Peter Dugdale. He said, "Hello, Jay. Do you think you'll ever go into management one day, maybe with Dereham or with another local club?"
Um, again, something I think about a lot. I'd love to. I talk about it at work. I'd love to because it fascinates me because I work with the coaches all the time. They're the people I work with the most. So spend loads of time talking about tactical stuff, how we can set up training sessions to impact the game, like performance in games better. So yeah, I'd love to have a go at it. I think I'd do an okay job. I wouldn't I wouldn't know. It would depend on my career at the minute in terms of if I stay in elite sport, I wouldn't be able to do it in terms of time. But if that didn't continue to go well, then yeah, it'd definitely be something I'd like to have a go at.
Lovely stuff. We'll end with this from the legend Rene, who said Jay was always a winner. We never lost many games when he played. That's quite a nice comment to have, isn't it? Thrown in your direction.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's probably my best trait, and probably why I got picked from. If I'm honest, I felt bad at times. I spoke about it last night. I used to turn up after not training. I couldn't train to work most of the time. Didn't turn up to many games, but when I did turn up, I was fortunate enough for pretty much every single manager to say that you're going to play, you're going to come and start. So yeah, I think probably that trait of just wanting to win and like I said, demanding as high standards from others as myself, and was hopefully what got me picked and played all them games. So yeah, but that's nice to hear from Rene. Rene's another excellent club servant. So.
Yeah, it definitely is. Jay, thank you very much. Really insightful hour or so. Really enjoyed your company. Thank you all very much for watching and commenting. We'll be back again very soon. Leave down below in the comments if there's any particular person you'd like to see come on here. I'm sure there's plenty of names that we could think of to get on, and we'll hope to do one in a couple of weeks' time or so. I hope you're all keeping safe and sane. Football is edging closer back. We'll be back at Oldest Park very soon, all being well. Fingers crossed. Be good to see you back down there, Jay. Whether that's playing or not, I guess remains to be seen.
Yeah.
We shall see. Thank you very much for watching,
Yeah.
and we'll see you again very, very soon.